Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, the 20th of October. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. South Korea says it expects high-level inter-Korean talks to go ahead as planned, despite recent military altercations across the heavily fortified land and maritime borders. The wait is finally over. The highly anticipated conference of International Telecommunications Union kicks off this morning in Korea's southern city of Busan. Delegations from almost 200 nations are in town for the three-week-long gathering. Plus, more unrest in Hong Kong as police and pro-democracy protesters clash yet again ahead of talks scheduled for Tuesday. But our top story this morning, the two Koreas exchanged fire across the heavily fortified land border on Sunday. Now, this is just the latest in a series of armed clashes, and it further raises concerns that plans for high-level political talks could fall apart. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff says this incident took place at around 5:40 p.m. Korea time at the military demarcation line near the border city of Paju, after roughly 10 North Korean soldiers were seen approaching the heavily fortified border. The exchange of fire lasted for about 10 minutes. There were no reports of casualties or property damage in South Korea, though no details are known about the situation in the north. Prior to that incident, South Korea's presidential office expressed confidence that the planned round of inter-Korean talks will actually take place as planned. Senior Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Security at Cheongwadae, Ju Chol-gi, said on Sunday that the talks will still go ahead, adding that Seoul is already making preparations for them. There has been understandable concern these talks might be cancelled given the recent military altercations at the border and the lack of any progress at general-level military talks last week. Now, South Korea is extremely keen to hold these talks as planned, suggesting October 30th as a date to hold them. North Korea has yet to respond to the South's proposal. Pope Francis has sent a positive message regarding the situation on the Korean Peninsula, saying that from time to time families have their differences, but they are always open for reconciliation. The presidential office of Cheongwadae said on Sunday that the Pope relayed his message to President Park Geun-hye last Friday during their meeting at the Vatican, which we can see there. The Pope added that he is keeping the two Koreas in his prayers and emphasized the need to pray for peace and unification of the Koreas. The meeting between Pope Francis and President Park came just 2 months after the Pope made a historic visit to South Korea. North Korean leader Kim Jongun has made his first military-related appearance since coming back into the public eye early last week. The North state-run media also showed Kim at another event, this time congratulating gold medalists from recent sporting events. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jongun is making regular public appearances following a prolonged absence that had the world wondering about what was going on in the north. The North's media reported Sunday that Kim inspected drills by fighter pilots in what marks his first military-related appearance since returning to the public eye on October 14th. The young leader guided a takeoff and landing drill by the fighter pilots from the Korean People's Army. It was not indicated when the event took place, but Kim was shown carrying a cane, just like in images of him released last week. Kim was said to have praised the pilots for their outstanding aviation skills and called for intense training to prepare for modern warfare. In a separate report, the North's media said the young leader met with gold medalists and their coaches from recent sporting events, including the Incheon Asian Games. Kim was seen shaking hands with the athletes and hosted a banquet for them. The leader was accompanied by his wife Lee Seol-ju and top officials including Hwang Byung-seo, the North's number 2. Kim's recent appearances come after an absence of some 40 days during which speculation mounted about his possible health problems and even a coup.
Through the resumption of Kim Jong-un's activities in the economic, military, and social sectors, it seems that North Korea is trying to show that Kim's leadership has been normalized.
Last week, Kim gave field guidance at a residential complex for scientists and inspected a new apartment complex for educators. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
2 Korean tourists are missing after the boat they were traveling in crashed into a large fishing vessel off Thailand's western coast. Local police say the tourist speedboat was carrying 34 people and 3 crew members from Phi Phi Island to Phuket. Marine police were able to rescue 27 of those on board the tourist boat, and villagers on boats retrieved 8 others. An official from the Korean embassy in Thailand have identified the 2 Koreans as a 31-year-old man and a 28-year-old woman. Police are questioning the speedboat's crew and the fishing boat's captain for further details.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, we've been talking about it a lot over the last few weeks and months, but D-Day is finally here. The world's largest information and telecommunications conference begins this morning in Korea's southern port city of Busan. Our Song Ji-son reports.
Connect 2020. That's the organizing theme guiding the International Telecommunications Union as it heads into its plenipotentiary conference this year. It's a vision that highlights the role of information and communication technologies as a key enabler for social, economic, and environmentally sustainable growth and development. The conference starts Monday with discussions on the future role of ICTs and sustainable development with inclusive ICTs got underway on Sunday at the ICT ministerial meeting in Busan. Korea has been hosting this annual ministerial meeting since 2005, and Sunday's discussions are expected to lay the groundwork for this year's plenipotentiary conference, which starts just a day after this meeting.
Member states at PP14 will be setting an ambitious vision branded as Connect 2020, which will set out how they, in close cooperation and collaboration with all stakeholders. Today's ministerial meeting is both timely and meaningful, as it allows us to lay the foundation stones on which we can build the cooperation to achieve Connect 2020.
Including the 52 ministers that attend Sunday's ICT ministerial meeting, over 150 ministers and vice ministers of ITU member countries will gather here at Bexco for the ITU plenipotentiary, which kicks off its 3-week conference on Monday. Song Ji-son, ARIRANG News, Busan.
And just a reminder that we are going to be bringing you live coverage of the opening ceremony of the ITU meeting down there in Busan. That's coming up at 10:55 a.m. Korea time, so within the next half an hour or so. Now, the Science Ministry is aiming to shift Korea's information and communication technology industry to one that is more software-centered. Speaking to foreign reporters in Busan on Sunday, Korea's second Vice Minister of Science, ICT and Future Planning, Kim Jongun, said there needs to be a paradigm shift in the ICT industry to software content and platforms. The minister also said Korea will upgrade its ICT industry via collaborations with other R&D-based industries in which Korea excels, such as semiconductors and automobiles. Korea's Presidential Office of Chongwade is calling on the National Assembly to waste no time ratifying the country's free trade agreement with Australia, signalling that it would like the deal approved by the end of the year. The office says a swift ratification would give Korean exporters a head start over their Japanese rivals in the very lucrative Australian market. The government is concerned that Korean exporters will lose precious ground to Japan if Japan's FTA with Australia takes effect first. Korea and Australia signed their FTA back in April, and the Korean government submitted it to the National Assembly for approval last month. Australia has been asking Korea to speed up the process as it has already completed all the necessary parliamentary procedures. Now, for this week's Industry Insight, we're going to take a look at the market for supercars here in Korea. They may cost a small fortune to buy, but sales here are skyrocketing. Our Kim Jongun reports on the reasons behind the boom.
Three seconds is all it takes for a supercar like this to go from 0 to 100 in an hour. But it's taken a bit longer for these marvels of engineering to take Korea's ultra-high-end market by storm.
They're not something you'll see every day, but these so-called supercars, Lamborghinis, McLarens, and Ferraris, are no longer a rare sight on the streets of Seoul, especially in the capital's flashy Gangnam district.
Since super and ultra high-end cars started coming into the Korean market in 1987, more than 1 million have sold here. It took 20 years to sell the first 300,000, but some 600,000 have been sold in the past 7 years. These days, Korean consumers are placing greater emphasis on uniqueness and scarcity when selecting their vehicles.
Their owners are often in the richest 0.1% of Korean society, and it's not hard to see why, as a supercar often costs more than a typical house, running into the millions. So who exactly are buying these cream of the auto engineering?
The higher Korean won helps sales, but supercar buyers don't really feel the effects of the sluggish economy. Also, Koreans have a strong taste for luxury goods, and supercars are just a different means of showing off your wealth.
Ultra-high-end auto brands report jumps in sales across the board in Korea. Some talk about a decent 20 to 30% rise, while others, like Maserati, are seeing their sales go through the roof. The Italian automakers sold 280 units in the first half of this year, double what it sold the whole of last year. The increase will be more than triple for all of this year. Brands like Ferrari just can't supply models fast enough to meet demand.
Ferrari owners are not that young. They're generally middle-aged men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who have strong personalities and enjoy specialized cultural activities. To meet their needs, we host numerous events that match their interests and make the most of sports-related marketing, such as Formula One.
Ferrari and Lamborghini will have to stay on their toes, though, as more rivals enter the Korean market. Britain's Aston Martin, famous for its models that have featured in James Bond movies, recently opened a showroom in Seoul. McLaren, whose models are said to be priced at some $500,000, started to take orders last month. With luxury car makers identifying Korea as a key market for growth, many drivers here will increasingly see their cars bypassed by the likes of Lamborghinis and McLarens. Kim Jongun, ARIRANG News.
China's Communist Party will kick off its fourth plenum under the leadership of Xi Jinping today. For a closer look at this and the other global headlines we're following today, we are joined now by Eunice Kim for the latest developments. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark.
So what can we expect at this year's plenum?
Well, the buzz phrase going into this year's key policy-setting gathering is rule of law. So China watchers will be looking for judicial reforms as well as other changes that will direct Chinese society in the coming years. Our Son Jung-in has the details for us.
This is the fourth plenum since Chinese President Xi Jinping took office. Elite members of the Chinese Communist Party begin a 4-day policy-setting meeting in Beijing on Monday, seeking to establish a platform for judicial and other reforms. Unlike previous meetings where the items on the agenda centered on issues related to the country's economy, this will be the first time that the party will focus on the rule of law. This is key to realizing Beijing's goal of promoting the modernization of China's governing system and capabilities. It is also expected to institutionalize Xi Jinping's long drive to tackle corruption by introducing a new anti-corruption office. The fate of former National Security Chief Zhou Yongkang, the first member of the party's Politburo Standing Committee to be detained for corruption, will also be a key development to watch during the meeting. There is speculation the leadership will make an example of him to show its determination to implement the rule of law. All eyes are also on what kind of measures the plenum will come up with to deal with the ongoing unrest in Hong Kong.
The protests may be drawn out for a long time and turn more bloody, so the Chinese government needs to figure out some countermeasures.
Other items to be discussed during the plenum include economic reforms such as provincial government's debt and rural land trade regulation. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
And as top Chinese officials gather for that party plenum in Hong Kong, the pro-democracy protests show few signs of losing steam as demonstrations enter its 23rd day today. Sit-ins also continued in the district of Mong Kok, the site of violent clashes with riot police over the weekend after protesters retook parts of that district. Police used pepper spray and batons to control the 100-strong crowds. At least 20 people were reported injured, including police officers. Ahead of talks between protest leaders and Hong Kong government officials on Tuesday, Chief Executive C.Y. Leung accused external forces of propping up the demonstrations that he characterized as out of control, even for the organizers. The standoff took off more than 3 weeks ago as protesters called for fully democratic elections in the territory's 2017 chief executive polls, a demand that Beijing has signaled through Hong Kong's leaders it will not buckle to. We have some encouraging news on the Ebola front. The Spanish nurse's assistant who had contracted Ebola after treating 2 infected patients at Carlos III Hospital has recovered from the virus. Spain's Special Ebola Committee said 3 blood tests had shown Teresa Romero's immune system had cleared all traces of the virus, though she will remain at the hospital for now for observation. This as in the U.S., 48 people being monitored for Ebola in connection to Thomas Eric Duncan are expected to be cleared in the coming hours, if not minutes, after being watched for 21 days or the maximum incubation period for the virus. And relatedly, the Pentagon has green-lighted forming an Ebola emergency response team for U.S. cases. This as President Barack Obama in his weekly radio address called for some perspective in the face of growing Ebola fears. He said more people die of the flu in the U.S. every year. And we'll wrap with an update on the war front on the Syrian-Turkish border. Kurdish forces are reportedly making gains on the strategic city of Kobani as a U.S. assault took down Islamic State militants from the air. Local residents said the airstrikes stopped the jihadists in their tracks, of which U.S. Central Command said there were at least 11 airstrikes launched on Saturday and Sunday. UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said some 70 IS fighters were killed over the weekend.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 LPGA KB Hana Bank Championship, where a 19-year-old golfer claimed the top prize and her name isn't Kim Hyo-ju, it's Baek Yu-jung. Now, after 18 holes on Sunday, the 19-year-old found herself tied with Chun In-ji and Brittany Lincecum at 10 under par overall, but birdies on the sudden death playoff hole, the winner of first ever LPGA Tour title. Meanwhile, Park In-byu had a great third and fourth round of the event, closed in on the leaders, but finished in 4th place at 9 under par. And now moving over to the KBO, where after the LG Twins snuck into the final playoff spot on Friday, they played against the 3rd place NC Dinos on Sunday for the first round of the best-of-5 playoff series. And of course, going into the game here, first inning, Lee Byung-gyu, that's a double to left center, scoring 2 runners on the play as the LG Twins take a 2-0 lead. Next batter, Lee Jin-young, RBI single here, and the LG Twins go up 3-0 before Chae Kyung-chul with 2 men on, gone, a 3-run shot, and the LG Twins take an early 6-0 lead. Second inning, Na Sung-bum, and this one drives to deep left field, gone, and NC's first home run in the postseason as the deficit is cut to 6-1. Now LG up 7-1 into fifth inning. Park Yong-taek drives this ball to straightaway center, a home run, and the LG Twins now have an 8-1 lead. Now despite barely making the postseason here, the LG Twins continue to swing away, adding 5 more runs in the 8th inning as LG takes game 1 14-3. And now shifting over to Sunday's K-League Classic clash, Busan I-Park dominated Gyeongnam FC 4-0 with Ulsan Hyundai Tigers getting the win against Hangju Sangmu 2-1. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings take on Seongnam FC. Of course, going into the game here, it doesn't take long for the first goal to be scored as Kim Do-hyun scores in just the second minute of the match to give Suwon the early 1-0 lead. But Seongnam quickly levels the match as Kim Dong-sup scores the equalizer in the 11th minute as both sides go into the second half tied 1-1. Stays that way for most of the way until the North Korean Wayne Rooney Chung Dae-se 81st minute goal gives Suwon the 2-1 lead. But hold up, time winding down to the 90th minute, server Zeprov to the rescue. A 90th minute goal from Seongnam as both teams split a point each with a 2-2 draw. And now moving over to some Sunday's KBL action as the Goyang Orions remain undefeated as they beat Ulsan Mobis Phoebus 81-74 with Wonju Dongbu Promi beating the struggling Changwon LG Sakers 80-62. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Busan KT Sonic Boom take on Seoul SK Knights. Now KT in control in the first quarter as they take a slim 14-11 lead before SK storms back to take a 33-26 lead going into the halftime. Third quarter, KT continues to struggle from the field while SK Knights' Aaron Haynes lights it up with another double-double, putting up 29 points and 10 rebounds, helping the Seoul SK Knights take this game 72-55. And finishing things off in volleyball, the 2014-2015 V-League season kicked off this past weekend. So let's take a look at 2 games that took place on Sunday, starting off in the men's league as Uri-Card Hanse took on the Korean Air Jumbos. Now, Uri-Card looking to repeat last year's performance, but the Korean Air Jumbos look great in the offense as they take the first 2 sets 25-21 and 25-22 before Uri-Card takes the third set 25-18. But Korean Air Jumbos' Michael Sanchez putting up a game-high 23 points. The Jumbos take this game 3-1 for their first win. Meanwhile, over on the Women's League, the defending champions GS Caltex taking out Hanguk Life Insurance Pink Spiders. Just a roller coaster of a game here as both teams split 2 sets each after the first 4. But in the decisive 5th set, the Pink Spiders dominate, taking the set 15-5 and the set 3-2 thanks to Rachel York's game-high 35 points. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
It's a rainy day here in Korea, though we can notice the lesser rain clouds than earlier hours. But this round of autumn rain is expected to continue all day long. And it's forecast that the rain will persist till tomorrow. 10 to 60 millimeters of showers will fall in the upper regions, though Seoul and the surrounding areas will see showers tapering off as the day goes on, while up to 120 millimeters of rain is in store for some parts of Chungcheongdo, Jeollado, and Gyeongsangdo provinces into tomorrow. And afternoon highs will be much cooler today, about 3 to 6 degrees lower than yesterday. So let's take a closer look at those numbers. Well, the daytime high in the capital will be reaching to 17, while Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 20 and 21 respectively. Now for other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will see highs of 24 and 19, and Dokdo peaks at 19. Well, it seems like that we will have another rainy day tomorrow, but we'll have our beautiful autumn day back on Wednesday, but it's going to be much cooler with daily lows only making to about at 10. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. We'll be back with another newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.